5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Well done, you've done the first set. Clap for yourself. First of all, you woke up today and now you have done the first set of warm-up. We have 2 more sets to go, right? Our rest time is 30 seconds as usual. We are going to rest starting now. So we have 25 more seconds. Walk around, don't sit down, we just woke up. The energy is up there, right? We have 15 more seconds. Always sip your water. It's a good time to take your water during your workout to hydrate. Five more seconds to go. 3, 2, 1, and start. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. Well done. Clap for yourself again. We are doing well so far. Our rest time starts now. Walk around, don't sit down, we just woke up. The energy is so high up there, so you don't need to sit down. Yeah, right. Breathe in if you have to, and release it out. In, out. Nice, nice. We have 5 more seconds to go. 3, 2, 1, move. Last set. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Well done, well done. You successfully finished the warm-up, which is the first step towards doing this workout today and starting your day on a new normal. So we have 30 seconds of rest time and we have a water bottle. Today we are training legs, so we will start with deadlifts. When you're doing your deadlifts, remember, you bend over and come up. Bend over and come up. So for some reason, if you are not able to efficiently just bend over because of probably an injury, make sure you properly, our time's up, you properly secure yourself and go down and up. All right, go down and up. Perfect. So let's do this using the water bottles if you don't have any injury. So let's go. 1, and if you don't have 2 water bottles, you can as well use 1. I'll go ahead and demonstrate. You can hold it like that and just go down and up. Alright, so we are going to do 15 repetitions. If you have heavier water bottle, you can even do it with 20-liter water bottle, because that is like 20 kilos. So if you can manage to carry 20 kilos, why not? Here with me is 10 kilos, 5 on each hand. So we're going to do this starting now. 15 times 3. 1, 2, 3, go. 1. Secure your back. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and right, 15. Well done, well done, well done. So we're going to take another 30 seconds of rest. The 30 seconds of rest starts now. Walk around, don't sit down. The rule is don't sit down. If you don't sit down and you're walking around, you remain active, and we are still burning during the active rest. So just walk around and don't sit down. We have 15 more seconds to go. I'll let you know when the time's up, or you'll actually hear it. The alarm go off. So we have 5 more seconds to go. 5 more seconds. 3, 2, and 1. So let's go. Set number 2. 1, 2, 3, move. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you're doing well. 8, perfect. Secure your back. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 1 more. 15. Well done, well done, well done. That is set number 2 down. We have 1 more to go. We have 1 more set to go. Your rest time starts now. Walk around, walk around, walk around, walk around. Breathe in and out. Nice. Breathe in and out. Nice. Walk around, walk around, walk around. We have 8 more seconds to go. 5 more seconds. 3, 2, and there we go. There we go, time's up. So we're going to go for the last set. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you're doing well. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and right. 15. Well done. Well done. You did well with that workout. So we are going to go to our next workout, where you do a burpee, squat, lunge, lunge. Alright, so you go do a burpee, come, squat, lunge, lunge, and then you jump. Alright, that's what we're going to do. Now how about if you're unable to go in that sequence? You're going to go down, up, squat, lunge, lunge. Alright, so we are going to do 10 of those times going to do 10 times 3. So starting now, we're going to do 3 sets of lunge, burpee, lunge, lunge, squat. Well done. So how about if you're unable to go down, you just do lunge, hold something, do lunge, do a squat. Alright, that will do so that you don't have to go all the way down if you are unable to do it. But if you're able to do it, let's celebrate success of being able to do it. Are you ready? Alright, I know you are. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, move. 1. 2. 3. Lunge, squat, and jump. 4. 5. 3. Lunge, lunge, squat. That is 7. Burpee, lunge, lunge, squat, and jump. That is 8. Lunge, lunge, squat, and jump. That is 9. We have one more. Burpee, lunge, lunge, squat, and jump. 10. Well done, well done. Well done. Our rest time starts now. And sorry that mat was moving. Let me just readjust it a little bit. There we go. Walk around. Walk around. Breathe in and out. In and out. Our time's up. Our time's up. Let's go for the next set. Burpee, lunge, lunge, squat, and jump. 1. Lunge, lunge, squat, and jump. 2. Lunge, 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 squat, and jump. That is 4. Lunge, lunge, squat, and jump. That is 5. Lunge, lunge, squat, and jump. That is 6. Lunge, lunge, squat, and jump. That is 7. Lunge, lunge, squat, and jump. That is 8. Lunge, lunge, squat, and jump. That is 9. One more. Burpee, lunge, lunge, squat, and jump. Well done. Breathe in, and out. In and out. You're doing well so far. That is set number 2. One more set to go. Breathe in and out. We have one more set to go. Remember I said, if you have an injury, you don't have to do the burpees with us. But if you can do it, you can go down, do the burpee like that, come up, hold there, squat, lunge, and lunge. That will still do. Alright, so you don't have to worry. But if you can do the burpee, you can still do lunge, lunge, and squat. It will still help us in this session. So keep doing it. Let's go for the last set. Are you ready? Our time went off. Breathe in and down. Let's go. Burpee, lunge, lunge, squat. That's 1. Lunge, lunge, squat. That's 2. Lunge, lunge, squat. That's 3. Lunge, lunge, squat. That's 4. Burpee, lunge, lunge, squat. That's 5. Burpee, lunge, lunge, squat. Then jump. Burpee. That's 6. Lunge, lunge, squat. Then jump. That's 7. Lunge, lunge, squat. That's 8. That's 9. Well done, well done. Well done. That was set number 3. You did well. You made it to the end of that routine. Breathe in, walk around, walk around, walk around, walk around, walk around. Is my heart rate up? Oh yes. Is your heart rate up? I don't know. You gotta tell me. But I know I loved it. I love it so far. My name is Evelyn Owala of Eval Health and Fitness. So I hope you're following through. Oh my goodness, my breath is running out. Let me breathe in and out. Good. Breathe in and out. Perfect. Okay. We're going to grab one water bottle. We're going to use it to squat and take it up. Squatting and taking it up. We're going to do 15 of those times 3. How about if I'm unable to go down, or if I have a knee surgery? Get a place to sit. No problem. Get a place to sit. You're here like this. You sit down. Come up. Take it up. 1. Sit down. Come up. And please control your movement towards the chair. Don't just slam into it. No, gradually and controllably go onto the chair. If it's possible, just tap onto the chair without totally sitting down. It would still work for us. So let's do this. We're going to do 15 times 3. Let's get started. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and right. 15. Well done, well done. Well done, well done. We're gonna rest for 30 seconds starting now. Walk around. Don't sit down. I know. It's just 30 minutes of your day. It's just 30 minutes. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. You can. You've come this far, you walk out. I mean, you're blessed. You can breathe. You can walk out. Let's do it. Let's do it. 10 more seconds to go. 10 more seconds to go. 5 more. 5 more seconds to go. 5 more. 4, 3, 2, and 1. Let's go for the next set. Pick your water bottle and let's go down, holding it here. 1, 2. If you don't have a water bottle, please know you can use a plate. It would still do the same thing. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and right. 15, well done, well done. Please clap for yourself, clap for yourself. We have one more set to go. Your rest time starts now. I don't know about you, but I'm sweating, and this is working for me for my new normal. Today we start with a workout to re-energize and get that positive vibe just coming our way, right? Oh yeah, we have 10 more seconds of rest. You can sip your water. Time's up. Time's up. Let's go. Holding the water bottle. 1, 2, 3, go. 1. Squat. 2. 3. 4. 5. You're doing well. 6. Nice. 7. 8. 9. 10. 11. 12. 13. 14, and one more. 15. Well done, well done. Clap for yourself. That was set number 3, which means we go to the next workout. After this break, we have a 30 seconds rest time. So in our next workout, please grab one of the chairs that you have there, or a stool, or any place you may be able to hold, because we are going to do this, right? We want to firm up this, right? Exactly. So you're going to do 15 on this leg and 15 on the other leg as one set. We are doing 3 sets. Okay, starting. Yeah, right, that's my timer. That's my timer. Let's go, starting now. 1, 2, 3, move. 1, 2, don't hit the ground. 3, 4, 5, make sure the bum is tight. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and right. 15. Let's go, the other side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Oh, we were going to 15. You didn't stop me. I couldn't hear you. But we're going to 15. Now our rest time starts now. 30 seconds from now is our rest time. 30 seconds from now is our rest time. Right, right, right. You can wipe off your sweat if you're like me. If you're sweating like me, feel free to wipe down your sweat, because we are starting this day with new energy. We have 10 more seconds to go. 10 more seconds to go. All right, 5 more seconds to go. 5 more seconds to go. Our rest time is 5 more seconds. 2, 3, 1. There we go. 1, 2, 3, move. 1, 2, 3. Make sure you're tightening. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and right. 15. Let's go on the other leg. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Tighten it. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 5 more, 11, 12, 13, 14, and right, 15. We have one more set to go. By the way, if I get a bigger bum on my side, I'll blame it on the 3 extra repetitions that I did that you didn't stop me in the first set. So you're gonna be my workout partner and you're not telling me. I want to hear you. I want to hear you. I want to see. I want to read. You telling me you're going past. So if I have that one big bum, it's because of you. Alright, we have 5 more seconds to go. 5 more seconds. 5 more seconds for the last set. 5 more seconds to the last set. Perfect. There we go. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, move. 1, 2. You're doing well. 3. Make sure you tighten. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 5 more. 11, 12, 13, 14, and right. 15. How about the other leg? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 more. 6, 7. You're doing well. Tighten. 8, 9, 10, 11. 5 more. 12, 3 more, 13, 14, and right. 15. Well done, well done. You did well today. Until our next episode, see you and have a lovely day.
As Kenya prepares for the reopening of schools in September, today we focus on education. Good morning, my name is Joseph Warungu, and on the menu today,
else that we are going to do will be determined by the way that the disease will be behaving.
so what will schools in the new normal look like? Needs to be in place. What needs to be in place for a safe and effective reopening of our places of learning? We'll find out shortly.
Learners and parents have been urged to exercise patience.
Parents give their voice on the current status of education and what their children are going through.
Congratulations to the class of 2020. You have arrived here in the middle of a global crisis.
Beehive, your queen has some wise words for you. Listen keenly. A Malaysian baker has made toilet cakes to mock those that panic-bought toilet papers during the first few days of the pandemic, and they're selling like crazy. And today we're asking you, how can the reopening of schools in September be done safely and effectively? How can the reopening of schools in September be done safely and effectively? We look forward to your comments and questions. Our hashtag is New Normal. You can also reach us via our WhatsApp line and telephone lines as well. Now, the Institute of Primate Research in Nairobi says that their method of mass testing could potentially lead to understanding the behavioral patterns of COVID-19 in the country. Terming it serological testing, the IPR findings could inform experts on the economic future of the country. The institute also says that they have the capacity to take on vaccine research and potentially find a vaccine for COVID-19 if funded. Currently, various countries around the world are using different forms of vaccine technology in a bid to curb the pandemic. There are approximately 102 potential vaccines that researchers are currently working on, none of which are in the stage of clinical human trials.
when we get approval to do serological testing, which is the real mass testing approach, because that will then now allow us quickly surveying the population to know, even including those who may have had the disease and healed without treatment. And with that information, we can be able to ascertain how far the disease has spread in the population and therefore inform in terms of reopening the economy.
We have also agreed with the institution to ensure all the scientists and all those that are working here to make sure that they're taken care of. In case anything happens, we don't expect it to, but if they need any health attention, any medical attention, then they'll be covered.
The confusion over two conflicting coronavirus test results from Lancet Kenya, the Nairobi Hospital and KEMRI has now escalated into a blame game. Lancet Kenya is standing by their positive tests and accusing Nairobi Hospital of employing a weaker testing protocol, hence the disparity. But as the institutions trade accusations, concern is growing over the integrity of the tests being carried out in the country. Charity Mwangi has more.
The conflicting results of two people who tested positive at Lancet and later negative at Nairobi Hospital and KEMRI respectively continues to cause concern on the integrity of the tests being done in the country. Lancet Kenya is standing by its positive tests, insisting that human error on their part is out of the question.
In South Africa, in fact, the Ministry of Health gave a directive and said anybody who has a positive result, if you go repeat somewhere else and it's negative, it is the positive result that supersedes the negative. In other words, if you are supposed to be in isolation because of a positive result, doing another test and showing that it's negative will not stop you from going into isolation, simply because we know there can be variation, but these tests are highly specific, which means if you are positive, you want to take precaution.
Lancet says the disparity in results from Nairobi Hospital could be due to the fact that their test kits tests for 3 genes, while Nairobi Hospital test kits test for 2, whose sensitivity and specificity they say are also lower than theirs. The laboratory admits that sample collection and the test kits can indeed compromise results. They, however, maintain that they have rigorous gatekeeping, thereby making it highly unlikely to record false positives.
I don't think it's false positive. I actually think that are false negative. And I can swear that by the Quran and have a gun put on my head, because we checked everything. And if we check something and we find a fault, we're the first people to admit, because these things happen.
Kalebi gave us a tour of the facility. First, the samples are transported tightly sealed to ensure that they do not get contaminated, he says. Then, the experts in his laboratory handle the samples in a sanitary environment that maintains the integrity of the samples. According to Lancet, many might not be open to positive test results.
If your test is told you are positive, there's no big deal. Absolutely no big deal. All it means is, with COVID, go home, chill, 1 week, 2 weeks. If you're able to have a test after that. If you're not able to have a test, 2 weeks after that, you're fine. So the whole purpose of doing the test is not like when you're being told you have cancer. You know, if you're told you have cancer, it's almost like you have been condemned. Or if you're told, oh, you have hepatitis or HIV, it's different.
Kalebi says doubts on test results are born out of a feeling that the extent of the health crisis is being exaggerated.
In terms of medical community wanting this to be, if it's positive, is to their advantage, I don't see how. Because right now, actually, most hospitals are suffering. Most labs are actually suffering because of COVID. All of us want it to be over, because we want the economy to be back on track. We want people to get back to work. We want doctors to resume. Our building here, if you see, it's quite empty because most doctors' clinics are closed. So there's no interest for us to say it's positive and keep it going.
Efforts by NTV to get information from Nairobi Hospital on the varying results were unsuccessful. The institution says it needs more time to put together a statement. Charity Mwangi, NTV.
Okay, and talking about test results, let's see how many people have been tested around the world and what the outcome is, not just globally, but also here in our region. Now, at the moment, as we speak, the global picture is that 7,318,131 people have been tested and confirmed positive for COVID-19. And out of these, 3,602,601 people have so far recovered. The number of people who've sadly died so far stands at 413,648. That's the picture around the globe. Coming to our own country, Kenya, this is the situation at the moment. We have so far 2,989 people who've been confirmed positive for COVID-19. 873 people in Kenya have so far recovered. And sadly, we've lost 88 people so far. Some of the other countries in our region, moving on to our neighbor in Tanzania, and the situation is that so far, again, this number for nearly a month now have not moved at all. No test results have been released, but the figures stand at 509 confirmed positive as at the last time that Tanzania shared its numbers. 183 people in Tanzania have recovered. 21 people have so far been reported dead in Tanzania. Across other countries in the East African region, let's have a look at Uganda, our neighbor to the west. And again, there the situation is that 657 people have been confirmed positive for COVID-19. 118 have recovered. So far in Uganda, as at this moment, no one has luckily been reported to have died as a result of COVID-19. A couple of other countries. In Rwanda, this is the situation. Their numbers stand at 463 people in Rwanda who have been confirmed positive for COVID-19. 300 people have recovered. 2 people have been confirmed to have died as a result of the disease in Rwanda. Moving to our other neighbor, Burundi, which sadly lost its president just yesterday. Their numbers stand at 83 people who have been confirmed positive for COVID-19. 45 people have recovered. 1 person has been reported to have died in Burundi. And one more neighbor, this is Somalia, where numbers have been rising quite a bit. 2,416 people confirmed positive for COVID-19 in Somalia. 489 people have recovered. And so far, in Somalia, 85 people have been reported to have died as a result of COVID-19. So that's the situation in terms of testing and the results that we're getting from our region in Kenya and across the globe. Now, amid tightening restrictions to stem the spread of the virus, a few sectors could resume some sense of normalcy soon. President Uhuru Kenyatta directed the Ministry of Education to announce the new school calendar by mid-August ahead of a possible September 1st reopening date, but under strict new guidelines. Now, the President also gave the Ministry of the Interior the green light to, within a week, convene an interfaith council to work out how places of worship, such as churches and mosques, will be reopened safely. Ngena Kirori has more.
Schools have become empty spaces. Their ordinary occupants have been away on account of the government's directive in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. As various institutions seek to adapt, the current state of affairs of work and learn from home is likely to last longer.
Everything else that we are going to do will be determined by the epidemiology of this disease, which means by the way that the disease will be behaving. So the question that we ask ourselves is, which will be the comfortable number of deaths that we want to be responsible for? And the answer is 0.
The CS says government is currently faced with a myriad of challenges, even as it tries to reorganize the school calendar.
Our second goal is to ensure that when we open schools, every child from Ukuru Kayaba to Mudaiga must have the same facilities. We should not be thinking about examinations alone. The issue of transition and the mega issue of CBC, which is competency-based curriculum.
Okay, so today we're looking and asking how safely and how effectively to reopen our schools when the time comes in September as per the date that so far the Ministry of Education and the government is working towards. Now, to help me with that, I've got a panel of people who are familiar with this sector to help us thrash out some of the issues and also some of your comments and feedback and questions, which are very welcome for our panel. My first guest is right here in the studio with me, who is Amos Kaburu. He's an education specialist from a PAL network. We are also joined by the nation's education editor, Waihenya Kariuki, who joins us through our social distancing rules via another studio on the lower ground from where I'm currently broadcasting from. We're also joined by Mudheu Kasanga, who is the chair of the Kenya Private Schools Association. She'll be telling us what is happening in that sector, as well as Kendi Kamanja Okech, who is founder and CEO of Talk Dyslexia. We'll be telling you that in a moment, what it's all about. Now, so those are the guests. Your questions are welcome. Our hashtag is new normal. Waihenya, I want to start with you because you spend a lot of time at the Nation Media Group thinking matters education. So my first question to you is, before COVID, what was the state of our education? What were the challenges? What was it like before COVID? It seems like a long time ago now.
Thank you, Warungu. Well, I think before COVID, we had a lot of challenges in the whole of education sector. In terms of the worst problem that we've been having across the basic education sector is a teacher shortage. The teacher shortages now currently start at 130,000 teachers across the whole basic education sector. I think we need about 35,000 teachers for primary schools and about 70 or 80 for secondary schools. So you can see already there is a big problem, because the teacher and to learner ratio in most schools is about 1 to 60 instead of the standard 1 to 40. Then there are obvious other challenges like facilities. There's a lot of congestion in boarding schools, especially driven by the government campaign to achieve 100% transition from primary to secondary schools, and other quality issues across the higher education. We've got problems with most lecturers not attaining the minimum basic requirements for teaching, like the level of PhD and so on. So I think, Warungu, there are so many problems even before COVID, and those problems still exist today as we speak.
Okay, Waihenya, thank you. Let me come to you, Mudheu Kasanga. I want to take you to a long, long time ago. We were living in a country without COVID. What was education like in the private sector?
Good morning, everyone. Education pre-COVID. We had our sports, we had our drama festivals, we had our music festivals, we had that is the extracurricular calendar going that now looks like will be, for the immediate short term, will be sort of packed away because of COVID. We had, we had just settled in Form 1s into their new schools. Just like Waihenya has just said there, we had a very set routine about how we did things and when we did them and when we would start, and that were part of the things that we would now be thinking about, if this was not COVID time right now, in June, we would be now working up to go for midterm, and would be sort of quite excited about the end of Science Congress and so on, building up towards the music festivals in August. That would have been our average sort of the broad spectrum look of the year, even as we did the academics.
Okay, thank you so much, Mudheu. Now, Kendi, a slightly different question to you. Can you remember life before COVID? What has changed for you?
Hello.
Hi, Kendi, can you hear me?
Repeat, please. I didn't hear you.
Okay, I was saying, life before COVID for you, what has changed?
As you briefly mentioned, I live with dyslexia. I am dyslexic. I founded the Talk Dyslexia organization after I just realized I'm dyslexic at 40 years. So I've been just going around creating awareness on dyslexia, and I can comment on that, what I've seen, like probably how it has affected now the people with dyslexia. Well, I don't have a child who is dyslexic, but I have a group of parents with kids who are dyslexic. So they've shared some of their challenges, of course, they've faced now with virtual learning. As you know, dyslexics struggle with reading, writing, and concentration. So you can imagine now introducing a whole new way of learning. Of course, now it makes it a bit disorienting for people who are already struggling in a regular class setup.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Yeah. And to you, Amos, you've been in our studio before, so my question to you will be a little bit different. When you take a bird's eye view at the education sector, where are we at in terms of where we were 3 months ago?
Thank you. Pre-COVID, there was a lot of tension. The education that we had was never designed for equity, that it is not an education that will serve everyone. So you have significant populations of children living in marginalized areas, of course, which are humanly marginalized, because there's nothing that should make Mandera to be marginalized. We know what Dubai has done, and therefore removed all forms of marginalization. Children living with disabilities, and what you've just heard Kamanja say, and even you have a specific group of children living with both hearing and visual impairments, or children living with multiple forms of disability, which are even going through tougher times. So the way our education had been structured, as Modeu says, it was highly structured, defined within a given certainty. The calendar will be defined in January. In fact, it will not even be defined in January. The PS will give us the calendar for 2020 way back in October last year. So it was already predetermined. You have 39 weeks, this is how you come in, this is how you go out. But right now, things seem just to have changed. Some of us who are proponents of the reforms happening were like, we needed something to reset the button. And it just seems that COVID was that thing that has now helped us once again to sit down and ask ourselves, how do we get right the fundamentals of our education? In terms of the philosophy of what is the education that we are giving, who are we giving that education, how do we give that education, what is the socialization component of education? We really complain that parents never had time for their children. Now we have given them a dose of 3 months. They still have another 3 months to live with their children. And it could even still be longer, because when you listen to the statement by the president, it's the gradual opening. So it doesn't guarantee that everyone will be in school in September. And also understand that it's happening based on scenarios. So should we not pick to have reached a level where we are flattening the curve, still prepare to stay with your children for a little bit longer? So for the kind of things that we always took for granted, they are now back home and dry. But also listening to just that design of where we never had aspects of blended learning. Imagine if the laptop project had picked up all those kind of things. Or if we had a situation where we say that let every school, no matter the case, at least have 1 week one day every week or 1 day every month to load education onto technology. We'll already have got used to it. But you see, because we never designed with such forms of flexibility, so it's now coming back to haunt us. So we are basically victims of our own making, and it's a good opportunity for us to look at ourselves in the mirror and try to correct what we have done, especially when you think of what we are calling the recovery and the reconstruction stage of COVID in education. It will be tougher. In fact, recovery will be tough, because you can imagine just waking up and now setting to go back to school. Where do you start? Okay. Children who used to sleep up to 10, it will be worse than what we are seeing right now.
We'll come on to that in a moment.
Yes.
But to you, Waihenya, when you look at our school system, did it have the capacity to withstand this kind of shock?
Well, I think, like many other schools throughout the world, our system did not have the capacity to withstand this kind of shock, because in the first place, this COVID-19 crisis is unprecedented. It's the first time it's happening in our time, and nobody could have foreseen it. So I think we're in a situation where, as Kaboro says, we are on a learning curve. We really have to take the lessons and prepare for the future. Because right now, if you look at the reality of our schools today, we are talking about September reopening. But if we have to abide by the WHO protocols, we find that the reality in our schools actually is skewed against any effort to adhere to those protocols. For example, running water. If everybody must wash their hands with soap, if you look at our school situation, most of the rural schools and those in the informal settlements, they don't have running water at all. They don't have that basic commodity. Most schools do have, but it's not dependable. The supply is not dependable. And if you look at the congestion in the classes, in terms of social distancing, it's almost impossible to effect a spaced out kind of system where desks are spaced out maybe a difference of 2 meters each, or even in the dormitories or laboratories or libraries and so on. So I think we're in a situation where it's tough, but we are learning, we have time, but I really doubt whether we can be prepared enough to open the schools in September. I think right now is when we should be preparing to make sure that we have all the protocols in place. And it's not easy. It's really a gargantuan task if you look at the millions of people who work in the school, in institutions. Okay. The non-teaching staff, the academic staff, the students themselves, there are millions of people, and they have to be prepared, they have to be trained, they have to have all these protocols working for them.
Okay, thank you, Waihenya. Now, as we all know, the President allocated 6.5 billion shillings to the Ministry of Education to help in the effort. But what would a return to the old reality actually entail? Ngina Kirori takes a closer look at how the danger that lurks with the virus would need to be kept at bay when classes are back in session.
While the words of President Uhuru Kenyatta may have been reassuring for parents who have had to turn to unforeseen alternatives such as homeschooling and online learning, the excitement has also brought with it a fresh wave of concern about how learning will take place as the threat of the virus lurks about. It is for this reason that a number of those in the education sector are calling for tight measures to be put in place to make sure that when chalk touches the board in the classroom, children are kept safe across the board.
I think we should not open the schools en masse. But because of what is happening, it is good for us to open the schools with the candidates, that is the standard 8s and the Form 4s. And about the preparation, I think the first thing would be sensitizing our learners about the COVID-19. And then we make sure that we have adequate water points and also flowing water, soap, and it could be strict rules on visitors visiting the school.
Children with underlying conditions are classified as high risk and need to be factored in plans to reopen schools.
We have children who are asthmatic. We know that we have children who are on ARVs. We know that we have children who are epileptic. So it's important, first of all, for each school to map out these children and see how best they would be able to address them.
The World Health Organization has outlined the guidelines for countries that are looking to reopen their education sectors. These include making sure to listen to children's concerns and answer their questions in an age-appropriate manner, also encouraging them to express and communicate their feelings. Introducing the concept of social distancing, including standing farther away from friends and avoiding large crowds, focusing on good health behaviors such as covering coughs and sneezes with the elbow and washing hands, demonstrating why it is important to wash hands for 20 seconds with soap and water. For example, by putting oil on a child's hands and asking them to wash their hands with only water to demonstrate the ineffectiveness, and then asking them to add soap so that they can see how it assists them in understanding how effective soap is. But the situation may require a more precise look at the country's own situation.
The governments are left to look at those guidelines and see how best they can implement them based on their situation. So our situation is very different. we might not have all the facilities. It would be good to test.
In the meantime, the government has already set up a task force and penned down a number of strategies in a bid to strengthen the education sector, including hiring 10,000 teachers and an additional 1,000 ICT interns to support digital learning platforms. But for some educationists, the basic element of a healthy group of students is the most paramount.
I would rather have a child who is healthy in my house than have one who is sick. And therefore, there is that fear that is among the parents. You see, even if we are to take all the children to class, we know very well that is that stage of asymptomatic stage, where some children might be infected, but they are not showing any signs.
These are valid thoughts from Zhao, as 2% of those affected by the coronavirus worldwide are children, while the number in the country is at 9%. In France, 70 students were reported to have contracted COVID-19 after the reopening of schools. This taught the country and the world at large that the decision to reopen schools may have its own advantages, but comes with a great share of risks. Gina Kirori, NTV.
Okay, now, Mudeu, listening to that report and what Waihenya was saying, it looks like public schools are not yet quite ready. What about the private sector? How are you doing?
This is the interesting thing about this pandemic. The public perception out there is that private schools are somehow better than public schools. Corona has showed us that, like somebody alluded out there, actually, this is the reset button that we all have. The problems that we face are actually universal. They are not just public school problems. While we might have better teacher-student ratios, it doesn't quite follow that we have better spacing in our schools, or we have more water in our schools, or, you know, we are all in, you know, education for some reason has never been quite favored with some of the basics that now we need to manage this pandemic. So right now, there's I think we've just finished doing countrywide. The Ministry of Education has just finished doing a water audit to check the sources of water for schools, all schools, both public and private. At this point in time, we are all working with a Kenyan child. There's no definition of a Kenyan child in a private school. There's just a Kenyan child. So whatever we are putting in place will apply across the board. So we have done the water audit. And what the Ministry of Education was aiming to establish is where schools get their water from, and whether they have enough storage for that water, depending on where they get it from. So that will inform the operating procedures that are now being developed. That said, in the private sector, we have gone ahead and prepared, in conjunction with the Ministry of Health in the private sector as well, you know, the health sector in the private sector, to try and project what it is that we as private schools need to put in place to ensure that the safety of the children. So we've done it in terms of what the schools need to do, what the kids need to be taught, how they need to, you know, the rules around Corona, the training, the teachers, the support staff, how outsiders will access the school, how to limit, you know, all those procedures.
Okay, I'll come back to more on that detail in a moment, but to you, Amos, in short, what we're saying is the school system is not yet ready.
Thank you. Our school system is not designed for resilience. That is in brief. And it's not just a problem in Kenya. It's a problem worldwide, because how societies designed education. First of all, one has to look at the relationship between the society and the school. The society creates education. It is not education which creates the society. Of course, later on, education has a big role in which it plays in terms of social transformation. But ideally, a school is an agency of the society through which it socializes the future generations, and therefore able to prepare the young people to adjust and to live right with that particular society. It is the mechanism through which perpetuity is realized. And so when the society created education, it thought of it is more economical, rather than every person you are hiring teachers, to teach your children, it is better for us to put all these children together and you can have one person teaching 40 children as opposed to you setting up a laboratory for your own child. So when the society was creating education, it was very much alive to the fact that we will not have these kind of shocks that are happening right now. But as I say that this is now sending us back to the drawing board. How do we therefore realize such in terms of what is going to happen later on? Of course, we know that there are many benefits that come with children staying together, such as social learning or what you call vicarious learning. There is so much that children are able to acquire. In fact, the curriculum contains 3 components. What you call the formal curriculum, what we put in those textbooks in the syllabus. There's what you call the informal curriculum, which will be happening just through the interactions. And then we also have something we call the hidden curriculum, something that nobody ever tells you about it, but you just pick it up. Like when you go to the US, nobody tells you that adopt an accent. You just come back with it and say, "Hey guys, man," and such. So all these forms of 3 curricula happen in this particular context. So now what we are having is going to be a serious transformation that now we begin to rethink how should school happen. Should school basically have been defined in terms of the 4 corners of a classroom? And the kind of things that Modeu is mentioning too are very critical in terms of us even defining what some people have thought that schooling could be the greatest existential threat to education. That education should not just be thought of happening in the 4 corners of a classroom. There is so much which children are able to learn. Who told you that if you allowed children maybe to stay in that classroom for 20 minutes, another 20 minutes they could be on the field? You can even teach diameter and the perimeter using the school field. You do not have to have all the 40 children at the same time. So how do we just begin to reorient our teachers and the entire school system?
So a total rethink.
There is a total rethink, and that's why for me, this is coming at a good time when we are actually reforming our curriculum, because there are so many things which are happening right now. So if we have to, first of all, put schooling aside and rethink of education, I am sure that we are able to open our schools in September.
Okay.
Only that it requires also a lot of careful thinking, and also, as somebody has said, are parents willing and ready? Also, so what do we give as assurances that education can continue in terms of adjusting the school as it was, for it to fit the purpose for learning to continue happening.
Oh, okay. Now, let me come to you, Kendi. You've spent a lot of time campaigning about dyslexia. When schools reopen, people, for example, who are living with that condition, what will be the challenges? What do you foresee as the challenges?
When the schools reopen?
Yes.
God, there's a
yes.
lot of...
Yes.
Oh, well, the challenges are still the same that were there, because at the moment, there's no much support for dyslexic children, not unless you go to schools that really give that support. But I've seen with the new curriculum, since the delivery is a little different, so it works for dyslexic children because it's a lot of practical and not just theory. There's a lot of application of what you learn. So the challenges are there now with the virtual learning, because, for example, if there's background noise, like through the media from which they're learning from, of course, that causes a lot of distraction, so they can't concentrate. There's also, since this is a new way of learning, of course, before they disorient themselves to the system of learning, of course, that will take a while. And then we struggle with spelling. So for example, if you tell us to take down notes without supervision, of course, it's a problem. Then if there are instructions given in where the student has to read the instructions, then of course there's a problem with that. So I'm not seeing it being any different. I mean, the challenges that were there before, we're still going to face them with when the schools open.
Okay, and just in case anyone who's not familiar with dyslexia, you have had that experience. Can you explain to us what it's all about?
Well, I struggled a lot in school. Yes, I went through university. I got a second upper in finance. I was a I was a banker for about 10 years. But there was a unique struggle on my side that I was not able to tell what it was. And school was really hard for me. Like it wasn't a walkover. I had to work probably 5 times harder for me to achieve anything. I have an issue with processing information. So like when a teacher is in class, I'm not able to follow. So I had to go and do the reading by myself. There are also those who see numbers like jumping on your page. So you're trying to read something and you see like the numbers and letters are just diving and swimming. So you're not able to really get what you're reading. And there are those also, basically there's the ones who struggle with auditory and the ones who struggle with visual.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kendi. Now, we've talked about safety in terms of reopening schools. Now, here's what parents have to say about children being at home for such long periods. We spoke to a few parents from around the country, and these were some of their comments.
My experience is that the staying at home has made them actually very, very idle. But as a parent, I've also put measures to make sure that they are not idle. They can help at work at home. Sometimes I take them to the shamba to do a few things. And I've also given them a timetable when they can look at their books.
The experience has been good. At least you've been able to bond with the children because they've been in school most of the times. And again, there are some hiccups.
Now you can see your children grow. You can see their weaknesses. You can see their strong points. And for me, I have discovered something, that one of my good sons is a very beautiful actor. I only heard from teachers. Now I know.
Wakati wanakuuliza maswali mengine ambayo hawangekuuliza wakati ule mwingine, kama baba nilijiona ya kwamba naingia nyumbani saa 2, sasa ninakuja mapema, wananiuliza maswali, tuna nafasi ya kucheza nao. Pia kwa njia nyingine ninaona pia tumejuana na watoto vizuri, tena tumependana tena zaidi na watoto kukaa pamoja nao.
When children are at home, number one, they are eating too much, so most of them are adding weight. Some of them, by the time they finish the many months they will be at home, they will have added kilos. Some of them will have to change their uniform, their shoes.
True, we have our best experiences with our kids, especially when they are being cooperative. But again, sometimes inakuwa challenging juu pia wao, I think they are stressed by being at home for long and not being used to be taught by their mothers and their uncles. But I would say they have done their best. I have done my best. Isipokuwa sasa nikitoka nyumbani sijui kama bado wanaendelea kusoma.
Na mimi ni hotelia. So muda mrefu sana nimekuwa nikikaa kazini. So time ya kuwa na watoto imekuwa ni kidogo sana. But this has been a very good moment to be with my family. At least from morning till late. Unaweza unawamanage watoto wako. Na hata kama kuna tabia mbaya kidogo hapa na pale, this was the right time at least to eradicate hizo tabia mbaya na kuwakuza katika ile misingi unayotaka wewe kama mzazi.
Mtoto akiwachwa nyumbani ni lazima awachiwe kazi, hawezi waachwa na asipewe kazi na wazazi.
Okay, Amos, I saw you nodding as you're watching that. What was going through your mind?
Yeah, because I felt so happy in terms of what we have always sought out for, that education has, if you go back to the old adage, it takes a village to educate a child. And therefore the triple responsibility of the teacher, the society at large, and the parent to ensure that their children are getting the best of the education. The kind of learning that is happening right now is that learning for life. And there are many schools of thought, of course, whether children should have routine or not. Yes, children thrive well in the routine. In my house, I refuse to put up a routine intentionally because I also felt that it should be also a moment just to see how life unfolds. And so there are things which are coming up because there is a lot of innovation, and innovation is never structured. And that's my biggest fault with when we try to equate life with the old normal. When there is a certain sense of unstructuredness, if there is such a term, then innovation begins to thrive. But when you begin again to box very young children that wake up, have a timetable, all those kind of things, it becomes very difficult. I was just talking to my wife just before I left, and we were discussing, because up to 11, our school is doing some assessments with the children. My daughter decided to set her own question, answered it very well, and finished. So by 10 p.m. is when she realized that she had not done the right thing. So I said, for me, I'm tired, I'm going to sleep, I have a show on NTV, I have to wake up and go. So they were battling with the mother, and she was telling me that they battled up to around midnight because she had done some things and she was really struggling to get them right. And I was like, it's pretty right, it's okay, these are children. So we must really commend our parents first of all for really taking this challenge head on. It's very, very encouraging, the kind of stories that we are listening to. But secondly, also to consider our children the heroes of COVID. Why? You can imagine when you are a child, your world surrounds around playing and reaching out to your friends. Now you're told that it's an abomination. You can't reach out to them. You have to wash hands all the time, stay in the house throughout. And our children have been obedient to this, at least for us as adults. Sometimes we break off from those routines, we go to the offices, we come to wherever we are, but our children have been indoors most of the time. I think that when the president is offering the next award for the Heroes Award, we should really award our 18 million children. They have really been the heroes of COVID. Okay. I really, really commend them wherever they are. Congratulations, children. You are wonderful. You are going to make a great future, a better generation than ours.
Okay. Asante. Now, Waihenya, if you're watching that discussion or those comments from the parents, it seems like a lot of the burden has shifted from the education system to parents who are now teachers.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think that is a good thing, because parents, at last, they have a very good chance to bond with their children, understand them. Like the guy who just said that he discovered that his child is a very good actor. I mean, there's a chance for parents to, create a new relationship with their children. But looking at it broadly, the longer students are at home, I think there's a great disadvantage, especially to millions of learners who are not able to have very strong family relationships. There is, of course, the widening disparities in terms of educational attainment. There's limited access to meals for schools which provide meals as an incentive to learners. There's domestic violence, especially aggravated by economic uncertainties brought about by loss of jobs and unwanted pregnancies because of idleness. There's also temptation to get lured into crime, drug abuse, alcohol, all these kind of things. So I think parents have a really big responsibility to keep their kids busy and to protect them from all these unwanted vagaries around this issue of this COVID-19 crisis.
Okay. And Modeo, to you, when schools reopen, shouldn't parents be asking for a bit of a refund from the schools because they've been doing a lot of the teaching themselves?
Thank you. But just to go back to the discussion, just a little bit, I think Waihenya has got it right. Those of us who have steady jobs have a very different perspective of what COVID has done for our families. Out in the rural areas where, like for instance, where it's a very different picture. And the experience of the parent with younger children and the parent with teenagers is totally different. It is even in one family, you can have the wonderful experience of children who are outgoing and whatnot. And then you get these introverted teenagers who are impossible to manage. I've had schools.
Sir Modeo, your line is breaking up. I think we'll reconnect with you in a moment. So Waihenya, do you foresee a situation where the homeschooling component that we have seen might continue, life after COVID?
I think it will, but there's obvious disadvantage of children whose parents are not literate. They're not educated themselves. They don't value education. And those are millions of parents. And also, when you talk about distance learning or online, there is the digital divide. There are only very few families who have access to reliable electricity, reliable internet, people who can afford to buy bundles all the time. And there are also very few schools which have come up with a system of getting in touch or maintaining that relationship with their learners. So I think it's a new beginning, because we've seen that we must have a plan B. And this is the way of the future, that we must go into online learning and homeschooling, but the infrastructural problems are there, and I think they'll be there to stay.
Amos seems to disagree. You're shaking your head.
Yeah, I think we are taking a defeatist approach. I do not think that we have any parent who does not see the value in education. Yes, we have cases of parents who have looked at the costs, the opportunity cost of sending children to school and found it not wanting. And this, of course, is a challenge all of us have battled with. When you have literally sold everything in your house to send your children to school, and after 12 years, they come back with a certificate that cannot help them. And yet these children were taken away from you when they were 5 years old. They are coming back with a degree and tamarking for the next 7 years. So these are the kind of things that erode the public confidence in education because of the economic benefits that are perceived to be achieved. So even in those areas where we think that parents don't pay a lot of attention to education, it is a formal education. When you go to give an education that makes sense, and I can tell you for a fact, because we are trialing some of these things, that even the technology we are talking of, we are not supposed to be talking about high-end technology. I can assure you that I was so shocked that listening to many areas in Turkana, many areas in Isiolo, actually have got 3G technology. Safaricom has already done its part. People have already invested. So what we have to be looking at is how do we invest in low-cost education technology that facilitates children to learn, number one. Number two, we need to be looking at how do we build capacities for parents to support their children to learn, rather than us taking a defeatist approach that parents are not able to help. Every parent would want to do something to help their children to learn. And that's the best opportunity that we should now be taking. When we are putting across information such as this one, what are we doing when churches reopen, when every space and every hamlet we are speaking of it, so that we are not just preaching despair, but we are preaching hope. And the last thing that we are going to realize is that we may have to declutter our curriculum, because the kind of syllabus that we had was the one that wanted the child to be taught everything. Washing hands should be done at school. So you have a whole learning area such as nutrition and hygiene, where you are supposed to sit in class, children are writing notes, you wash your hands for 30 seconds, this is how you cross the road. Honestly, those are now things that the system can now begin to mediate with the parents. That there are certain components which we as parents were able to take our children through. And you just build the capacity for our children. We orient the way the media is running programs, the way you are doing right now. You are building a lot of capacity for parents. And that is what we need. So that we leave the hard substance of the hard chemistry, of the organic chemistry, and the homologous series, and the biologies, and the binomial nomenclature. Those are things that can now be left to the school system, the calculus, the integration, and the differentiation, dy over dx. Those are things that every parent, you and I, are not able to take through our children. But telling the business of washing hands, this is how you cross the road, this is how you prepare a cup of tea. Let us now negotiate to have those things taken over by the parents, so that we have got a smaller, a shorter school curriculum, maybe one that can even run from 9 up to 3, lessons that are short 20 to 30 minutes, as opposed to the kind of madness that we had witnessed pre-COVID.
Okay, Amos, when you use that kind of terminology, it makes education very scary, but we'll come
yes, that's why those are the things to be left for the school, and you leave us with the normal stuff of washing hands that we're able to do with our children, and life becomes sweeter.
Thank you. Now let me tell you what, we give parents across the country a chance to give their experiences with homeschooling, and this is what they had to say about all of that.
Imetusumbua, imekuwa ni challenge, ijapokuwa tumejaribu kuwafundisha pale tunaweza. Najua wengine wetu tumekuwa wanafunzi kitambo sana, so tumekuwa tumesahau mambo ya kusoma. Sasa kuwafundisha watoto ama kwa mwalimu tena haikuwa rahisi vile, lakini tumejaribu.
Alafu pia ile masomo ambayo wanasoma pale shuleni ni tofauti sana na vile ambavyo tunawafundisha hapa nyumbani. wakati mwingine sisi kama wazazi wanakuuliza maswali ambao huwezi ukajibu.
Like now I have a grade 1 pupil and the new syllabus is a bit challenging. So I cannot be, but some of the topics you are not able to deal with them. That is the biggest challenge.
I would say maybe from home wamesoma 60% of what they would be doing in school. Nikitaka kuamini from school wanafaa kuwa wakifanya maybe 100%. Why the 60% is because sometimes I'm not available, or maybe I'm just available for a few hours in the morning. I have to go to work. I have to provide, so I'm not fully there.
Kumekuwa na ugumu zaidi, sababu hata nao saa ingine wanawachiwa kazi, wanaambiwa wasome, na ukikuja kuangalia unakuta hawajafanya ile kazi uliwaachia.
The online teaching program is very good, and I think it is something that as a country we need to adopt, because going forward we never know, this pandemic may end, but you don't know what else can come up, you know. So as a country, we need to start now thinking in that direction.
I'm among the few like you who can sit down with them and read. We have been doing that to the young ones. The old ones have a timetable for them. So the only thing is you do not press them so hard so that they don't rebel. Because if you press them so hard, they will rebel. And once they rebel, it becomes another story.
Okay, Waihenye, if you're following that, different standards, different methodologies in the home. I don't know how we're going to know what levels our children are when they go back to school.
Well, I don't know, but first of all, let me respond to Kaboro's remark that every parent has an interest in education. There are so many parents in Kenya who have no interest at all, and that is why the government is pushing very aggressively this 100% transition from primary school to secondary schools, even using chiefs and police to round up kids who are not in school, because parents don't care. There are those parents who believe in early marriages, very many children getting married off at a very young age, cheap labor. In fact, right now there are very many kids are just engaged in cheap labor rather than learning at home. So your question is, sorry, I didn't get your question.
Okay, you can see how homeschooling is quite a challenge, even for us grown-ups. It was those comments from teachers, not teachers, parents at home, who we've just been observing them. They're using different methodologies, really struggling. Standards are going to be very, very different when we go back to schools.
Yeah, you're right. Because actually the system, even me, for example, my kids, I'm not able to help them very well in terms of the curriculum, because the things they're learning, like mathematics and very many subjects that I'm not very familiar with, and I really don't want to mislead them, but I'm just making sure that we do some very basic learning at home, reading, writing, mathematics, and so on. But there are the obvious challenges of, the lack of the classroom spontaneity, the social interaction in school, being able to give them feedback that can help them, and the obvious home distractions. There are so many distractions at home, and with young kids, for them to hold their attention for long is quite difficult. Teachers can do that better, but at home, I think it's very different.
Okay, Modeu, your experience, if you're back with us, of homeschooling as parents?
I think everybody here has spoken the correct thing. As the technocrats, as the educationists, we are expecting a lot of loss of learning. What does loss of learning mean? It means that when children don't stay engaged with education, they literally do lose that learning. So for instance, let me pick the example of a very young child who was learning how to write. We expect to go back to zero, because by September, we'll have lost half a year, at total half a year. And we don't expect, and we know that the parents don't actually have the skills to push the kids towards the levels perhaps we would have if they were in school. So we will have to really work very hard to recover some of the skills, especially for the younger kids, where they are learning the skill of writing, the skill of reading, the number skills. Those are the skills. In the upper years, we're expecting maybe perhaps up to 40%, 50% loss of learning. But that said, I'm not saying this to worry parents about anything. I mean, we've had minor shocks within our schools over the years. For instance, when a place goes through flooding, they have to close school for a month, 2 months before they have to. You don't even get to hear of it. So we have populations that keep losing time, but schools are able to manage that return. That said, we do live in strange times, even though the president has given his directives. Our education curriculum is based on age. You go to school, you move up based on age. You don't move up because you have achieved a certain bank of knowledge. What does it mean? It means that for once, that's why it's illegal to make a child repeat. So we are expecting a very tight program to recover even as kids transition.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
We have a very distinct problem with special needs kids that is not really coming out firmly. I know Kendi has tried to bring it out, but the special needs kids are having very severe and very special problems in this prolonged shutdown.
I want to come back onto that shortly. But first, let's see what you've been saying to us on our hashtag New Normal. These are some of your comments. Our question of the day is, how can the reopening of schools in September be done safely and effectively? And these are some of your thoughts. John, you say, by not opening them. Okay, we will keep safe. To the point. Yoima Manuela, well, areas affected need to be controlled as early as now, as the mass testing is done to ensure they bring in suggestions of new feedback after the whole process. Then those areas not affected to maintain the containment measures and report any doubt with immediate effect. Those are your comments, Yoima. And Castro, you say it's a joke for now, unless there is nothing like COVID, as Magufuli said, just an avenue to take loans from the West and loot public funds. Aya, asante. Another comment from Olich Munde. The Ministry of Education should focus on establishing more facilities to enable virtual learning within the schools for senior learners. This will create more space for the juniors. Thank you for that. We also have Kim Kennedy. You say candidates to resume first. Okay, you want a staggered system of resumption. Thank you for that. And another comment here from Uncle Benjamin Kirui. Well, open at night from 9 p.m. to 4 a.m. Those are curfew hours to avoid the spread of the virus. Okay, hiyo imfikie Uhuru na curfew. Hashtag amesikia huyo. Florence Shikuku, Minister of Education and the so-called government consult the medics on a serious note, then go back to the drawing board to find solutions, or else hiyo umewacha dash itakuwa shida. William Owino, abolish boarding schools. Day schooling with adequate social distance maintained for every child. You say that is the ideal. Sawa. We also have Michael Amondi Oduol. With a low level of testing, schools won't reopen even in September. If they do, then it will be a tricky situation. Students will be at a very high risk. Now, Amos, watching that, quite a lot of detail going into how they're preparing to reopen their schools in the UK. Do we need to do something similar?
Oh, fantastic. Absolutely true. What we are losing in the entire of this conversation, including perhaps some traces even on this site, is really trying to imagine that we can go back to the old normal and really clinging onto it, that it was the best. Yet we have tested and found that it was wanting. It could not serve the purpose. I think practically speaking, at this point in time, we must commend our teachers. They are doing fantastic work, trying to make every effort to support children to avoid what Modeu called the loss of learning, because it is true, it was going to happen. But I think we are also not looking at it from the flip side of what are these other social skills that the children are learning, that we spend a lot of time trying to help children again to acquire respect, responsibility, personal management. All these are kind of things that the school system really struggles at. It's easy to have a teacher who trains a child on how to do differentiation and calculus and the modeling, but it's very difficult to have a process which supports those children to develop those personal management skills, social skills and such. So we should also be looking at the duality of the effects of COVID. And take this conversation right to the steps of TSC. that what should the Teacher Service Commission be doing at this point in time? So that we have got support mechanisms that we have, whether we have webinars, whether we have got the WhatsApp groups, the kind of conversations that are happening right now. I have seen conversations, because I belong to many WhatsApp groups. The last time I checked, I was in about 97. And some of them are mostly for teachers, and they'll be talking about why teachers should be beginning to have a lot of side hustles and such, which I totally agree. It's not good to have one source of income. But on the other hand, also just looking at whether we are going to allow conversations to really degenerate to that level, or are we now beginning to refocus on what should teachers also be thinking in terms of mental readiness when schools reopen, so that they are not really obsessed in the moment of just trying to see how they are churning out more content to go to the children, but are also really rethinking around that recovery. What are we calling the recovery phase? When you come from hospital, when you've been hospitalized and you have been discharged, it doesn't mean that you are ready to do everything you are doing earlier on. You undergo a recovery phase. There could be physiotherapy, there could be a lot of, a moment at which you're able just to be at your home, maybe to rest a bit before you are full back to your normal. And that's what we are calling the recovery phase. We also don't know how long it could take. It could take 1 year, it could take 2 years, it could take 3 years. Before we go to the whole period of reconstruction, where we are talking about for the long-term changes. These are the kind of things that we need to have in place. So at this point in time, we would have expected that the Teacher Service Commission will play a slightly bigger role in terms of looking at their own human resources. Because for a fact, those of us who keenly follow the works of the Commission or even the association such as the one for Mudeu, to begin looking at the 4 M's that beyond any other resource that you have, the human resource that you have is very, very critical. And especially how we have treated our teachers at this point in time.
What would you like a TSC to do?
What I will be looking at the TSC to do is now to begin developing those support mechanisms. We have seen what churches are doing, for instance. We have seen what different institutions are doing. So how do you begin perhaps even to have webinars, small groups in those WhatsApp conversations, because teachers have got this kind of interactions. How do we have bit-sized information that facilitates them to start getting ready when schools are opening? Because the first thing, of course, the government has done, which is very, very commendable, is it has not touched on the salaries of the teachers, because we must assure the teachers that they still have their jobs, something that the private sector is really struggling with. Okay. And therefore, we are going to have a situation where when schools reopen, you have got a battered private school system teachers, because they were quite low. Most of us as parents have taken a wait-and-see approach when schools will reopen. There was a conversation of tukule school fees or not, and yet not knowing that our children who attend private schools, the kind of fee that we pay is what actually ends up to pay those teachers. So I will even make a personal appeal to our parents across the country that yes, we are not just paying for the fee, but that little money that you put in is actually what pays those teachers and the effort that they are making. So we also have to take that psychosocial support as early as now as part of the preparedness for the recovery stage.
And talking about parents discussing to call a fees here, second term or is it third term, Amanini? Well, at this point, reopening of schools seems inevitable, but what steps are schools and the government taking to ensure children's safety? And what can parents do to ensure their own children's safety? Are the parents even willing to send their children to school? These are some of the concerns and suggestions these parents raised across the country when we spoke to them.
Shule zifunguliwe, lakini ninadhamini maisha ya mtoto wangu sana zaidi ya masomo ambayo anayapata. Kwa hivyo kama hakuna mikakati mizuri ambayo wanaweka ya social distance na jinsi ambavyo watawalinda watoto kutoingiana sana na kupata ugonjwa, mimi na prefer fadhali nikae na mtoto wangu nyumbani lakini awe salama.
Naona ni vizuri kama watoto wangerudi shule, lakini hawawezi rudi shule kukiwa na hii shinda ambayo tuko nayo ya ugonjwa. Hatuwezi, afadhali tukae na hawa, Mungu atasaidia hii shida ikiisha, watarudi shule, lakini ni kugumu.
Maybe for the candidates, maybe the government will put in measures for them to first go back to school and have them tested for them to be back in school so they will not be infected by the COVID-19.
They should go to other countries to see what they're doing. There are other countries that the students have already gone back to schools, the lower primary, maybe they have primary. What they should do, when they are opening the schools, I hope they're going to do it gradually.
Sanitizers lazima ziwe kila fahali. Maji yale ambayo tunaambiwa tuosha mikono kila wakati, lazima pia watoto wafundishwe jinsi ya kuosha mikono na kujitayarisha wakienda kwa madarasa.
Some of them are really stressed. Some of them might be happy because they are not waking up early to go to school. But again, when the government decided to open the school, the measures they should put in school to ensure that our kids are safe, like sanitizing the premises of the school and ensuring the kids are having masks. I know most of them will not be able to adhere to that because they are small kids. It's going to be a challenge per se for the teachers to ensure the kids are keeping distance and all that.
Since we have teachers who are coming in and out of school, how sure are we that our kids are safe in school? What is the government going to do about it? What are the schools going to do about that? Na pia, as we take our kids back to school, how sure are we that we don't have some kids who are already infected, or maybe some parents, us now, who might take the infection to school? Then what will happen after that?
As a government, we have mechanisms of how schools can be opened and students can be protected. And one of those is for those schools which are boarding. If you bring all the students back to school and you are able to monitor them on a daily basis, and then you ensure that nobody is leaving the school compound, this means that even the teachers must stay within the compound. And then they put the normal COVID measures of washing hands, wearing a mask. I think we can get there.
I would like to see two things. One, a common trend. What I call a common trend is this thing called flattening the curve. The curve should now be predictable. Once we get that predictability, then we can be able to comfortably open schools. And number two, I wish to hear from Kenya National Examination Council, because the examination is up to what you have learned, so that we do not get students late for the education cycle. Because like someone said, in England the other day, a good friend of mine said that missing education cycle is worse than corona. I would not wish to repeat or to agree with it, but it is very close to what they would miss if they were to miss the education cycle.
Okay, now, Modeo, listening to those comments from parents from around the country, at a very bare minimum, what needs to be in place in schools to ensure safety when they reopen?
We will need the Ministry of Health to supply hand sanitizers as a basic minimum. This is especially because we do understand the reality of our country and our water deficiencies in our country. So we expect the Ministry of Health to supply every single child with hand sanitizer, enough to last, not the small bottles, reasonable size bottles, so that as schools grapple with the water issues that we as a country face and fix them for schools, we are able to ensure that our kids are safe. Face masks for all the students. And I believe this is already ongoing, how to get those face masks in place. And perhaps even for the younger children, even though I know if we are determined, if we are to work with parents, our children can wear face masks. But should there be a problem, maybe because of special needs and things like that, we need a face shield for some of our children. This can be manufactured locally, and already I believe that some parts of the private sector are ready to do this affordably, so that the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Health can procure these things for the Ministry of Education. For us as a private sector, we are very keen to demarcate where support will come from. The education sector, as it is extremely stressed and distressed, both the public side and the private side. So a lot of the money to ensure the health of our country must truly come from the Ministry of Health. So we are expecting that these shall be put in place. We have in various forums, at least for us in the private sector, we have firmly recommended that this is not the time that to start splitting hairs about what the government must take care of Kenyan children. Full stop. And this is to be done through the Ministry of Health. They are the experts in this.
Modeo, you seem to shift a lot of the burden to the government. The reality is that sadly, it is the parents who will carry a lot of the burden of a very now new expensive model of education. Is that right?
That is correct. That is correct. With social distancing, we're going to see the cost of education shoot up. Like Amos has been mentioning there's the social distancing alone. We expect to see both in the private and the public sector. If teachers are to teach in shifts, for instance, if that idea of shift teaching is implemented, that means teachers' workloads will double immediately. If you are to teach one lot of students in the morning and another lot in the afternoon, you're doing double the workload. Is it even humanly possible for the same teachers to do this? Where do we get the teachers, extra teachers? Where do we get the budgets to do this if we are going to supplement and help our teachers to do this?
Okay.
So it is a very tricky discussion. And while the public out there has an idea of what is the ideal, we will have to work within what we have. So
Okay.
we are readier for a condensed curriculum, and might not be ready for a while for shift teaching, given the manpower we have in our country.
Okay, thank you Mutheu. Wahenya, quick comment from you. As you've heard, tayari wengine tumekula fees, but the burden of this education is going to fall on the parents.
Yeah, I agree with you. The parents have a big duty to do. But more than that, I think, as Mutheu said, it's going to be a very expensive, when the schools are open, it's going to be very expensive because, one, apart from what I mentioned earlier, the supply of water, which I think is quite a problem for many schools. The learners have to be given masks, and for most families, even buying a mask that costs a paltry 50 bob is quite some money for most families. Maybe the government can provide washable masks. Now the spacing in classes and in dormitories and in laboratories, and what Mutheu mentioned, learning in shifts, is going to require either we hire more teachers, many more teachers, because the work burden will of course double. And as I mentioned earlier, the basic education sector is crippled by a huge shortage of teachers, about 130,000. And so for timetabling changes to take place, we must have adequate teachers to support those kind of changes. The budget which will be read tomorrow, I think there is some money, I don't remember how much, that has been devoted to hiring more teachers. But I think the teachers that can be hired is only 10,000. And I think those 10,000, we only take care of the ones who are retiring or leaving for other professions and so on. So I think we have a huge challenge in terms of teacher shortages.
Okay.
Yeah. Hao athletics, wakimbiaji, wanamuziki wametengewa pesa. Juzi tumeona kwenye vyombo vya habari waziri wa michezo akisema ya kwamba timu ya Harambee Stars wamepewa 10,000 per month to upkeep them. What about we teachers that we are helping? We are really helping this child to improve the economy of this country. We are really suffering.
Okay, and let me start with you, Mutheu, from the Private Schools Association. The plight of teachers, we've had a cry there from a group of teachers. What would you say about the plight of teachers in this season?
I don't think as a country we have ever been here where we are today. At the moment, we have 155,000 teachers and 133,000 support staff. And from data I have from my public school counterparts, 78,000 teachers employed by boards of management of schools who have gone without pay. Now we have got a firm reopening schedule, September. These are Kenyans who will have gone without income for 6 months. It is beyond comprehension, the tragedy that is going on in the education sector. We have made a proposal to the government, and the public sector, the associations, the heads associations have also done the same. And we really want, as part of a mitigation strategy from the government, that we are asking that these teachers also be considered. The teacher who just spoke from Wasingisho is absolutely correct. Teachers work extremely long hours. The average working week especially for teachers in the private sector is 40 to 50 hours a week. And parents, yes, fine, recognize the effort that private school teachers put in. And that is why wherever parents can, where they can, they do put their kids in private schools. And when I talk about private schools here, let's be very clear what we are discussing here. The vast majority of private schools in Kenya are actually not expensive. They don't deal with them, Nairobi is a bit deceptive. The vast majority of schools in Kenya actually deal with issues of access and quality, and giving parents that option where sometimes a public school is not available nearby. I can give you just examples here in Nairobi where there are very few public schools and parents actually have no choice but to take their kids to a private school. So this is no longer just a case of saying parents, it should work itself out. We are dealing with a health crisis, a pandemic, and global pandemic. These teachers, all of them, both the ones employed by boards and the ones in private schools, should get something from government. Initially, we've asked for, that their salaries be taken care of the same way that teacher alluded to, that if sports people, the Ministry of Sports and Culture are getting, these are not public employees, these are not government employees. So the argument that these are private school teachers, that they shouldn't be taken care of, is neither here nor there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks for that. Kendi, let me come to you as well. We're talking about teachers, possibly hiring more teachers. What about in the area of special needs? Things like dyslexia, for example. What is the need for teachers as far as you're concerned?
There's a big challenge in that area, because even currently, there are not many teachers who understand what dyslexia is. So that's even the first starting point. It's to train teachers on how to identify dyslexia and how to teach these children with dyslexia. Dyslexia is very common, is 20% of the population, but I can assure you probably only 5% of Kenyans know what really dyslexia is. And sometimes it's confused with low intelligence, because there's a comment I had yesterday from a discussion in your station, and the doctor said it's a mental disability. It's an intellectual disability, which is very misleading, because you cannot be diagnosed with dyslexia if your IQ is below average. So there's a lot of misconception about dyslexia, and these kids who can really make literally anything out of life and pick any career that they want are neglected, because no one really understands how to teach these children. So if that is taken care of, definitely we'll have dyslexics having a better chance of advancing in their careers and in their learning.
Okay. Now, thank you. Wahenya, again to you for a quick comment about teachers. We're already talking about looking for thousands more teachers. What about the ones that we already have? How well are we looking after them?
I think the ones that are in public schools have a big advantage because they are on full pay, even though they have not been working for 5 months. As I said before, this is unprecedented. But those in private schools, and private schools play a huge role in providing access to education. They're a huge employer, there are huge investments made in those schools. They are very well resourced, most of them. And also, they give a variety in terms of curriculum, rich. Parents can choose whatever curriculum they want to do. So I think the government should meet the private school managers halfway, because I would hate to imagine a situation where a teacher who has not been on pay for the last 5 months, how would he be expected to settle in and continue working for an employer who has not been paying them. So I think the government really need to think about it. And also, as I said before, there has to be a huge recruitment campaign for public schools, especially the basic education sector.
Okay, thank you, Henya. Now, Amos, talk about putting a lot of investment into education. Quite apart from the COVID-19 crisis, can we afford this?
First of all, it is not affordable. Secondly, it is not sustainable. I will say this for the upteenth time because I've said it and I'm on record that we build a very dangerous system, one that created a divide between what we called the private and the public sector. And it became so adversarial in nature that any form of complementarity was completely lost. It is not right that you are surrounded by 5 private schools which were looking like they were thriving, whereas the next public school was basically collapsing. If you walk to go to Kilimani area, where you find a school such as State House Primary, Nairobi Primary, St. George's, which the people who live next to those schools, their children don't attend those schools. Why did we really relegate the responsibility of ensuring that these schools were working so that right now they will be serving everyone? Why did we allow that people have to spend a lot of money? If you have to put up a school in Kilimani, how much is it going to cost you to buy a piece of land? When are you going to recover your investment that you made in it? Why weren't we so strategic in the sense that we were looking at building a complementary system as opposed to building a parallel system that was private and public? And now the sins that we committed, they are now coming back to haunt us. However, moving forward, there is something very fundamental that Mudeu said. We have to recognize that there are no private and public children. All Kenyan children are Kenyan children. I can assure you when COVID arrived, nobody was talking about whether it was in business class or whether it was in the economy class. The point was that COVID was right here. And now when you are affected, it is not whether it is you are taken to that high-end private facility or you are taken to Bagadi. The point is that you are COVID positive. That is what you have to recognize. So we have therefore to begin asking ourselves, how do we therefore build a system that is going to be cost effective? And some of us who have spent a lot of time looking at cost effective strategies of how to deliver our education, because our education every year is asking for additional resources by natural factors, such as population is always going to increase. And because we are injecting an additional 1 million people into this country every year, that's the number of children that we are giving birth. We cannot stop our people from giving birth. A big population is good for a country. It even increases your GDP. And you also have the purchasing power, which is increased because you have got more people. You therefore have a position to have a better human resource that you're able to build. So it is good that we have a bigger number of people. But now this is how we need to think of it in terms of the recovery phase. I think that what Mudeu said is very fundamental, that we may not have to adopt this shift school system right now, but we can actually embrace a condensed curriculum so that we can begin to have a phased approach, even if it means that let's begin by allowing children into school for 1 day, let's allow them for 2 days, let's allow them for 3 days, so that we have a phase that can take us up to 3 years. Is now when we can say that we are fully recovered. We do not need to invest because we can actually design an education that can run without buying sanitizers. Okay. That is the point. So we should not just be rushing to say that. So gradual. We don't, yes, let's embrace a gradual approach Amos, as opposed to.
My time is running out, but I want to get a few closing remarks from my panel. To you, Mudeu, looking forward to September, just briefly, what will be your recommendations to the task force? It's done its job, but what else would you want to add on to that to ensure schools open safely, effectively?
My parting shot on this is very simple. We have seen the Mercedes-Benz of how, if we had implemented the digital learning program, we have seen it work in the international schools. I like what Amos has said. Let us not have a defeatist attitude towards digital learning. And let us understand that it may save us for the next 3 years as we learn to live with Corona and the mechanics of making a school work. KICD has done quite a lot. It has helped. It has massively helped. But we need now, as we get back, now let us make it work so that we never have again the issues of parents don't have devices. Let us look at it with a problem-solving attitude around it. That's my part in short.
Okay, what about you, Kendi? Your final thoughts on this as we look forward to September?
Actually, I'm liking the virtual learning, and I think it is an alternative that can be looked at. For example, if you look at social distancing in class, that will not be very easy to achieve. So is it even possible to consider that some children can continue with virtual learning and others can go back to a regular class? So there's we can achieve even social distance requirements. I mean, I've seen it working. I have my daughter is in grade 3, my son is in class 8. My daughter really adopted so fast. Well, my son, I don't even supervise him. Even my daughter now, there's nothing I basically do. And also I see a lot of support, like from YouTube videos to emphasize on some concept. So I really, it's an alternative that can be really considered.
Okay, thank you, Kendi. Now, to you, Waihenya, looking back to what some of the parents have been saying, there is a lot of concern about safety, and we just assume that people will be eager to send their kids back to school, but parents are very wary. How do you rebuild confidence in parents that it will be safe for your kids to go back to school?
Well, I think, first of all, I think the government is right by delaying the opening of schools, by pushing it to September. I only hope that that September deadline is not cast in iron. I mean, the infection curve has to really go down consistently for about maybe 2 or 3 weeks so that parents can begin to get the confidence that the kids will be safe. Because you can imagine a situation where parents go back, learners go back to school, and then one of the students maybe develops a cough, and there is panic all over the place. So I think the government has to start preparing with these WHO protocols, but also it should not rush to open schools, even that September. As one parent said, it's better to have your child alive than educated and dead.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Waihenya. And on that, just before we close, did you know that children's brains are far more powerful and intuitive than we ever imagined? As more and more research is done on the impact of early education on children, the results continue to point to a surprising conclusion. When children are given a rich environment to explore, they naturally use scientific processes to discover the world around them. Did you know that curiosity is the birthplace of learning? If you follow a 2-year-old around for even a couple of hours, you'll watch as he or she explores the world organically, following their innate curiosity about how things work, how they taste, how they feel, how they look, and what sounds you get. Now, when a parent or a teacher is able to harness the power of that curiosity, it's like riding a wave that already has momentum. Did you know that playing can develop a positive attitude towards mathematics for children? Mathematics can easily become a tedious and dry subject, and I should know because I failed flat. However, when teachers add games to the curriculum, students' attitudes about math change dramatically. According to research from Deakin University, game playing helps change children's perspectives on math. And before we close, some of your comments on our hashtag #NewNormal. And here is one from George Machinery. Screening, testing and certifying before following guidelines, including use of masks and social distancing, is what you feel needs to be in place. Okay, Kamau, Corona should be turned to a subject and taught all classes at first lesson to create awareness in kids. Okay. Wow. Tony Kamau, just open for the candidates only, Form 4, Standard 8 and University final years. So, okay, another gradual reopening proposed there. Mark Brown Smart. Now, if there's no vaccine in September, best believe it would not make sense to open. Mtajionea tu. Okay, that's... now, Tini Karugo, you say school should operate 24 hours a day, 2 shifts to avoid congestion. Okay, walimu au tutatoa wapi? Haya, Mama Kiabi Mwikali Irene, this is the time we need to computers promised by the Jubilee government some years back, because we can't risk kids' lives in the name of opening schools. Asante sana, serikali imekusikia. Simon Simpo, I'm not ready to kill my own children. I'd rather have them without education but healthy at home than wise and sick at school, nothing can substitute their good health. Okay, well stated. And another comment here from Nyaranyango, not possible. Until there's a vaccine, corona is not like homa. Thank you for your comments. And tomorrow we take a look at security concerns during COVID. That is cybersecurity or bullying, upsurge in crime, and measures you can take for your own personal safety. So see you at 7 a.m. Before then, as always, 6:30, a workout session that will keep you fit every day of your week. Thank you so much to my panel. Amos here, we have Mudeu, Waihenya, and also Kendi. Thanks for joining us. We're back tomorrow, same time. Stay safe.